Hello, my name's Shauna and I work for Ilk Agency, which is a marketing agency in Leeds. We're partners with CityFibre and I'm here today to teach you all about how to use social media. This training session is aimed to tell you everything that you need to know about social media for your business. Here's a little bit of an overview of me. So in addition to a broad grounding in PR, I also specialise in social media strategy and paid media, which is why I'm here talking to you today. I'm the account manager for the CityFibre account, and we lead all their social media pages and digital advertising projects with that team. I've also worked on other accounts, including Tribe, Couture Living, Perfectly Clear, and Aardman Animations, and I've worked in other roles at Taste Card and Gourmet Society as well. What I'm going to take you through today are key trends for social media in 2020, understanding the algorithms, particularly for Facebook and Instagram, content types, so what to post and when. We're going to understand how to use online tools to create assets. We're going to understand what to do if a customer complains, and I'll give you some advice on how to respond, as well as best practices, so some do's and don'ts and things to avoid, and then finally reporting. The first thing I want to take you through is key trends for social in 2020 and beyond. Knowing key trends is really, really important so that we can keep our social media strategies in line with these. The first one then is social selling. Brands are still investing really, really heavily in social media adverts. Consumers are becoming increasingly comfortable with the concept of shopping on social. As such, the social platforms are making it very easy for brands and companies to continue to spend their money online. They're making their ad experiences easier so that you can boost posts, sponsor posts, tag in products on Instagram shopping. Facebook in particular has taken really great strides in ensuring that products can be delivered really dynamically to customers, and they're always adding different formats all the time. You'll probably notice these as you scroll down your own feeds, the carousel ads with multiple products that might be sat in a basket somewhere, and particularly the fashion brands are really good at doing that. Or there may be other things like collections where you can click on it and it opens up a whole experience that you can shop in outside of actually leaving the Facebook app. They've also added more calls to actions. So calls to actions are things that you use to direct customers in the right direction. So things like buy now, shop now, and they've always expanded those. Instagram shopping and the development of product features there is another key trend. Instagram's really moving from being an influence platform right through to a direct revenue driver for many businesses. There's loads of different ways to use Instagram selling. So there's product tagging, and you can pop things in Instagram posts or stories. There's in-app checkout so that they don't have to leave, which Facebook's built in as well. Or there is always incorporating the promotion of products into your Instagram feed as well through your organic activity. The next thing is telling stories via stories. Over the last couple of years, stories have become one of the biggest social media trends. Brands have found more ways to engage with their audience through this new vertical format, and they're quickly becoming one of the most prominent placements on the platforms. One of the best things about stories is that you can build in some interactive elements, so things like polls, rating, and other things like that. They're brilliant ways to engage with your audience, and they make your content feel like more of a must-see. Instagram stories have really dominated the space, but Facebook stories is on par in terms of engagement with approximately 500 million daily users. It should definitely not be forgotten. Emotions and emojis. So emojis have definitely been around for years. They're synonymous with things like phone, with texting, but they're not done yet, and they're still going strong in 2020, and especially really on Twitter. There's this perception that kind of millennials and Gen Z are the only ones that use emojis, but actually the use is on the rise in all age groups across all platforms. We like to use them because they're a great way to break up text. They really command attention from an audience, and they can present your information in a really fun and personality-filled way. There is a craft to using emojis correctly, but they should always be considered as an option in your social media activity. Make it video. So video content, whether long or short, is now a must-have across platforms that we use. So CityFibre in particular uses video across Twitter, Facebook, and even Instagram. Videos are the most shared content across social media. On Instagram, there are multiple options for brands to showcase video, including like front-end profile content, but there's Instagram TV, live streams, and always the newest edition of Reels. Facebook and Twitter have also added some live elements which can really work to drive up organic reach within their algorithm. It is important to know that 85% of people watching videos on social do so without the sound. So this is something that we need to keep in mind when we're pulling assets together. How can we make the visuals look entertaining and interesting rather than hiding everything within a voiceover? Influencers continue to influence. So since the idea of a celebrity endorsement was starting to work its way into marketing, brands have been using partnerships to raise awareness and encourage sales. It's definitely not a new thing. It's been happening for decades. It's just now moved on to the social platforms. There's been a huge shift in the past few years to move away from larger influencers or celebrities towards smaller, more trusted content creators. Research has found that these micro-influencers, so those can be anything with followers between 1,000 and 100,000, are actually trusted far more than those that have larger followings. That trust leads to more engagement at a lower cost, as well as increased positive sentiment for the brand, which means the partnership's more likely to increase online conversions as well. As it stands at the end of 2020, nearly half of our consumers spend time on the platforms, and they depend on their influencer recommendations when looking to purchase a product or service. So developing briefs for influence campaigns can have a huge impact on your sales figures. This next section looks into how we can really look to understand the algorithms. The first question you might have, and rightly so, would be, what is an algorithm? Social media algorithms are basically just a really fancy way of saying that these profiles sort posts into your feed based on relevancy instead of a publish time. Long gone are the days when you would post an Instagram post and it would appear next to somebody that had posted 1 minute later. They now don't do this chronologically, but they prioritize which content any users see in their feed by the likelihood that they'll actually want to see it. By very default, these algorithms kind of take the reins and determine which content to deliver to you based on your behaviour. So Facebook or Twitter might put posts from your closest friends and family in front and centre, because those are the accounts that you interact with more often. Thinking about how this works is you've probably been recommended videos to watch on YouTube, and this is all based on your individual behaviour and the platform's kind of clever AI digging into what you've watched in the past and what users like yourself are watching. Elements such as what categories you use, what hashtags you engage with, and the keywords are also a factor into recommended content on any given network. So how this is useful for you as a user, the first thing is to understand how the things that you interact with have an impact on the things that you see. And the next thing is understanding it from your business perspective. If you can flip it on its head and understand exactly how these algorithms work, you can create posts that work around them. So we're firstly looking into the Facebook algorithm and some of the basics here. The Facebook algorithm has changed a lot over history, since it was born in 2004 and gained a newsfeed in 2006. It's evolved and become the huge platform that it is today. Since 2016, they've been prioritising content based on the amount of time a user spends with it. So if you watch a video for 5 minutes, that video begins to gain relevancy. Facebook's more likely to show that on a feed for somebody who joins the profile and comes along next. Then they started to add in reactions, so your love reactions, your angry reactions start to be weighted more than likes. So a post with 5 loves would be higher ranked in the algorithm and therefore more likely to be shown higher up in the newsfeed than one that had 5 likes. After that, in 2018, they started to build in more meaningful interactions, which is what they call it. And that basically means that posts are prioritised when they have more comments. And that's something that then we started to see an influx of brands and businesses saying things like comment, you know, for a chance to win, or tag in a friend, and that was all to get more people commenting. And that's something that they then tried to kind of combat in 2019 with the introduction of a why am I seeing this post tool, to let users kind of understand how their data was being used and to let users understand the algorithm a little bit more. It also then meant that businesses that were using engagement bait tactics, which is, like I said before, encouraging fake or false engagements by encouraging people to like, comment or share on things to win a prize, for example, started to become something that Facebook could punish you for. So this is something we go into in a little bit more detail in a minute. So how do you work with the Facebook algorithm in 2020 then? Understanding these basics will help you create content that stands out on there. So the first thing to do is work out exactly how Facebook ranks your content. And this is based on 4 key factors. One is the inventory of all posts available to display. That's something to keep in mind. If the competition is bigger, if more brands are posting, your content is likely to be further down the line. That's something that's really key when we're thinking about you know, Black Friday, Christmas campaigns. When a business is likely to be posting a lot, and am I going to have to do the same to keep up? There are also then signals that tell Facebook what each post is, and those signals will be things like whether it's a video, for example, or whether it's an image post. Again, we know that Facebook prefers video posts, so the more video content that you post, the more likely your content is to be seen. There's also then some predictions, which is something that's done really cleverly or scarily, depending on your thoughts, in the back end of Facebook. And this is kind of taking your previous interactions, understanding their audience and how they think people will be reacting to each post. If they think it's going to get a lot of engagements and a lot of comments and it starts to do that, then that post will be boosted up the rankings and become one that's more likely to be seen and more likely to go viral. And then finally, a final score is assigned to the content based on all of the factors above. So as long as you're ticking all the boxes in those places, you're likely to have a positive post, and if you're not ticking those boxes in those places, it's likely to not get the organic reach that you're really looking for. So what does that actually mean? Outside of the jargon and kind of all the sciencey stuff, what can you do as content creators to make sure that it works on Facebook, keeping all of the above in mind? The first one is to start conversations. A really great way to do that is to ask questions within your post copy. You basically want your content to prompt people to stop their scroll, interact and share with one another. The key stats on this are you probably have about 2 seconds to capture someone's attention before they move on. So really your assets and your copy need to be striking and work well together in order to really grasp your audience's attention. There's also relevancy, so you need to be as relevant as possible. So you need to be keeping your core audience in mind, the people that you want to build a community around, which are probably the same people that you want to buy your products, engage with your business, or you know, start to build a community around your product or your service. So this is just something that you need to think about in terms of how you're speaking, your tone of voice, what type of content do these people like, what do they engage with, and then starting to create content that's similar. Number 3, don't force fake engagements. I've talked about them a little bit earlier, but all of those like if you and share if you are, all these posts are now considered to be engagement basing. Facebook says this doesn't add real value or real interaction for users. It's all kind of faked and forced, and therefore you're likely to have your content penalised. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can definitely encourage people to give you their opinion. So you can say things like, what's your favourite, or do you have a favourite, things like that, but not you know, not things that are considered fake. You also can boost your best performing organic content with a bit of ad spend where relevant, and this is something that's important on Facebook. Your organic reach is likely to be quite low, so if you can put a little bit of spend behind your post, you're likely to get a lot more traction. And then finally, you need to be tracking the performance of all of the above with your Facebook Insights and other tools, so you know exactly what worked and what didn't. And then using that information, you can work on how to build on that for the next month. Here's a post that I thought would be really good to call out. You can't really see within this screenshot because it's a still, but this is actually the start of a video created for CityFibre. It's good in the sense of that it starts with a question. So not only is it you know, engaging the audience directly and making them think how they can respond, it uses some emotive language. So we've got words in there like mayhem, which really do encourage emotion from the audience. It understands the core audience and the problems that they're facing. So we know that the audience on the CityFibre channel is really looking for high quality full fibre internet, and this campaign was all about some of the pains that you could face joining Zoom calls if you had rubbish internet and you were buffering all the time. But then it provides a direct call to action, which is the check availability in your area, and it sends people to a link to find out more. And what we did with this one, we supported it with a little bit of spend to drive up reach and engagements. So again, that kind of touched on all of those things within the Facebook algorithm, and that's why this was one of our best performing posts. So that's Facebook in a nutshell, really. Moving on through into Instagram then, although they're owned by the same people, they are quite different in terms of what they require for your content to stand out. So we've pulled together a little bit of insight on how to work with the Instagram algorithm. One thing that they look at is the relationship with the user. So if a certain user has interacted with a lot of your past content, they'll be more likely to see your future content. So this means that Instagram is a really, really great place for building a loyal audience. It also means the more of your audience that you build, the more they're likely to see your content, which is not quite the same on Facebook because Facebook doesn't really have this feature. There's also, outside of the relationship, is the interest that the user has conveyed in your posts. So have they interacted with your posts? Have they interacted with similar posts and other accounts as they explore Instagram? Instagram's very good at noting which accounts kind of match each other, how they have similarities, and how audiences interact with those. So obviously, if there are brands that are similar, then those people are likely to see your posts as well. So there is that little element of competition there, always making sure you keep an eye on what other brands in your space are doing and how you can kind of one-up them, so to speak, because those people are likely to see your posts as they make their way around Instagram. And then there is recency of the post. So we talked about it earlier, but the chronological feed is now a thing of the past, but timeliness is still really relevant. So the more recent a post is, that will be pushed to the top of the feed, and older posts will show up a little bit further down. Another core thing to mention here is that your Instagram posts are always kind of created on this banded structure, which means that if you post at 7 a.m, for example, Instagram will show that post to 15% of your audience. It will only show it to 15%. If those 15% of people, the engagement rate is quite high, so say it gets 10 likes or 20 likes or 30 likes, then Instagram after that hour will realise, okay, this is a high quality post, we're going to release this now and let the rest of the audience see this. So you might start to notice that in terms of interaction with your own posts, and you might see you get a little bit of an influx of likes and then it goes quiet and then you get another one, and that means that your post has been deemed really relevant and engaging by Instagram. Or if you don't see that second influx of likes, then it could be that you posted at the wrong time, and it may be worth kind of pulling that post down and trying it again at a more timely opportunity. So just after dinner time is normally quite good, 6:30, 7 p.m. as people are sitting down and looking at it, or traditional commuter times as well, although that is a little bit different during COVID. So Instagram is also really about great visuals and content. If you scroll through some of the most popular feeds and the ones that get thousands of likes and views, it becomes really, really clear that higher quality imagery leads to a more successful feed. So there are some really easy ways to make the most out of the platform. The first one is to keep all of your content aesthetically pleasing and in line with a key theme. So make sure you always use similar colours, the same filters for all images. Make sure that it looks consistent, and so people can see your content and think, yep, that's you. I know exactly what I'm looking at here, and this is what I'm going to engage with. Use Instagram stories and use swipe up links wherever you possibly can once you hit that threshold of followers. Make sure that you're using live video where possible in a really informative way. So whether it's product descriptions, question and answer series, partners with influencers, just make sure you're using that live video as part of your strategy. You can run promotions and competitions and giveaways to drive up following, but just make sure that you don't do this very often. You don't want to be seen as a brand that just gives all your products away, or your service. You need to be interspersing these throughout the year at times that are really key for you. You also need to work on posting engaging captions that really ask questions and invite the audience to respond with something meaningful. So making sure that you ask them questions about things that you actually want the answers to is a really, really good place to start. Another thing is really adding value. So offering people free advice or information and really presenting yourself as a useful, informative source for a specific topic that aligns with your goals. That's something that a lot of big brands do really, really well, and it's definitely something to start working on. And then again, posting during active hours, that's so key for that banding element that I spoke about earlier. So posting early in the morning when people are in bed, or posting kind of late at night when they're going to be sat there kind of with a bit more free time to check, are probably the best performing times as a rule, but that will be different for everybody depending on the audience demographics that you work with. Further on than this, we've talked about it before, but audience loyalty and engagement from followers is now just more important than ever, and it really will earn you one of the top spots in the feeds. So what we want to be doing is really building on and creating that relationship with your audiences and making them have really good relationships with your content. We want to have content that encourages users to share their thoughts and gives you an opportunity to start a conversation. We want content that is generated by the user as well. So user generated content about your brand or your product that followers have posted. Not only does that inspire more people actually, but you can then start to benefit from knowing that their followers have seen your product, and you can start to use that content in your own promotional material as well. Engagement building posts, so posts that tag a friend, or Instagram contests that encourage users to comment are really, really good. Again, shouldn't be done constantly or all the time, but definitely build those into your strategy. And then making sure that you engage with and comment on other people's posts as well. Instagram has a two-way algorithm, so you need to be giving what you get, really. And the more you can comment on other people's posts with really interesting things, or even just nice positive feedback like looks great, or oh, we love to see this, all of those things tell Instagram that you're an active user that's really engaging with the platform, and therefore they're more likely to increase your organic reach there as well. In terms of your day-to-day management then of Instagram, what you really need to be doing is these three things: making sure you're responding to comments and messages, always creating that two-way communication. When people talk to you, you talk back. You need to be interacting with other content on the feeds. It's a really vital part of the algorithm. You need to be seen as active members of your community. So maybe set aside 15 minutes at the start and end of every day just to go onto this Instagram and go through and make sure that you're ticking that box. And then really keep an eye on your tagged images to see if there's anything that you can repurpose, regram, add to stories, or even use in marketing later down the line. We're now looking into content types. So what content can you post will really have an impact on your channels? When selling a business or a product on social, it can be really, really tempting to just post sales content all of the time. The more you ask people to buy, the more they will. Sadly, it's not the case. We always recommend a bit of an approach of 70, 20, 10. But what does that mean? 70% of your post should be brand building, 20% should be informational content shared from your own website or strong relevant sources, and the final 10% should be where your sales posts really live. So here are some examples to bring that to life for you. This is a brand building post from Ted Baker. Brand building posts are anything that really gets people to engage with your brand and understand exactly what you're about. Humour can be a really key tool for doing this. It's really good for engaging. It's really good for attracting followers as well. The humour on this post is so simple that it works for everyone. You're not alienating any audiences. It's not too niche, too specific. They've got a really simple aesthetic there. You've got the logo kind of turned over so that it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's easily readable and it'll stand out on the feed in amongst all the other product images. And it's got that kind of British sense of humour with the hashtag that they've used kind of front and centre, which is an important element of their brand that they always find really important at Ted Baker. This is another option, and this is from Paperchase. So this is a really nice example of user-generated content. So they've seen somebody mention their brand on Twitter, and they've taken that screenshot and they've pulled that onto their nice aesthetic-looking background, and they've really pushed this out as a brand awareness post, which showcases the products, but it's not directly encouraging people to buy it, which is why it sits in the brand element. Their caption asks people which of these decorations are your favourite, and you can see that that's been really successful in the fact that people have come back in the comments and said exactly what it is that they want to buy as well, which is again telling Instagram that this post is really engaging and is likely to reach more people because of that. We've then got informational posts. So these types of posts direct people to find out more information, and this can be sat on your own company's website, or it can be sat kind of elsewhere. So if you've achieved PR coverage, or if there's a nice guide online which showcases the product, but it's not sales driven. It's accompanied with a nice lifestyle image which shows the customers exactly what they expect when they're going to go to the website. And again, it's just got some nice emotive language in there, talking about bringing the outside in and having people feeling really Christmassy. So it puts those users in a specific place and time, and then gives them all the information that they need to head to the site and learn more. This is another example. So this shows how a brand can use their products and have their products at the forefront, but still not push sales in a really heavy way. So this has information in a really direct way. It's got instructions for people on how they can best use the products, and it's also really good in terms of when it's been posted, kind of early November, because it's at that really relevant time as well. People will be looking for hot chocolate brands because it's turned colder outside, and they probably want a bit of a sweet treat in the run up to the festive period. We've then got sales posts, which are far more simple in terms of format. So this post has a really direct call to action: buy us, try us, and let us know what you think. So we have given them 3 things to do, but they're all very clear. They've got the relevant hashtags which are likely to increase sales, so things like new product in there. There's a caption which is full of humour and personality, but it's also got the price in there. So again, that's tying it directly back into monetary value and sales. They've tagged in Morrison's where it's stocked, so you can see that in the bottom corner. So again, we're just showcasing exactly where people can find this, and it used video content, which I appreciate you can't see because this is a still, but that was again to tie into the algorithm to make sure as many people had seen this sales post as possible. And it was ultimately quite a successful post in leading to direct sales as well. So some final tips: you really need to capitalise on seasons, national days and holidays. It's not only key to capture people's mood as seasons change, but it's key to comment on things that people are talking about. the World Cup, National Chocolate Cake Day, any other awareness days, they'll all be trending topics, and they give you a really good opportunity to tell the social channels that you're someone that's talking about something interesting, and then they're likely to prioritise your content on the feeds. You need to be human and personable. It sounds really, really simple, but make sure that you sound like a human and not a robot when you're responding. Make sure you can respond to people quickly and in a very human way, and people will likely to have more positive thoughts about the interaction that they had. And then just keep testing your times, keep an eye on your posting times, make sure you're working out exactly which ones did well, even if you have to write them in a list. But always kind of frame these around ones that you think are likely to work. So your early mornings and your evenings as well. Make sure that you're always going through and thinking about who you can add to your own feeds as well. Adding valuable, relevant Twitter and Instagram followers. Most people think that you can kind of head onto your Instagram and follow 50 people a day, and eventually enough people will follow you back, and then you'll have 1 million followers and you'll be away. Actually, it's really key that your audience is grown organically and in an authentic way. The authentic, truly engaged followers are really what make your account work. So, brands that bought loads of followers back in the day are now kind of facing some of the penalties for this, because it's not just about that number anymore. It's really about the engagement and how audiences interact. And if you bought fake followers, you won't get any interaction. So that's another thing that we always recommend strongly against. But what you can do is, as a first job, when you set up the feed or when you go back to your feed after all this, start to go through and add leaders in your industry, add bloggers that talk about things that are in your industry, follow all the magazines and then look at their followers and see who they're following, and make sure that you're following people that are really relevant to your Twitter and Instagram and who look like they may be part of your target audience. Not only is it good in the sense of they've become aware of your brand because you followed them and they can see you, but they then will start to post content that it should be really easy for you to engage with when you're doing your two-way strategy, because it's all nice content that should be relevant to you. So that's just a really key thing to do as well, alongside knowing which hashtags to use. You can always reach more people with hashtags, but make sure you're using the right ones. Use some of the analytics on the feed to know exactly what's trending, know what's related to your industry and what to try. We always try and say maybe keep your Instagram hashtags to only 5 or 6. It can be tempting to put far more, but sometimes Instagram kind of flags that as spammy and may penalise your content for that. And then on Twitter, we kind of like to keep it at 2 or 3 if possible as well, for that same reason. So always try and think about different hashtags you can use, see what other people that you respect and are using social in these industries use, and start to just trial between them, kind of rotating and working out exactly which ones got you the reach that you wanted. In terms of ways of working then, there are some things that you can do that will really make your feed perform well. And they are quite admin based really. So each month we really recommend that you create a detailed content calendar which has all of your posts in, all of these posts that we've been talking about that are created to make your brand stand out, encourage engagement, drive followers. You should kind of plan these out in advance, keeping in mind any national days that are happening, any new product launches, and then you should leave a few placeholders in there as well for some more reactive pieces. So it's called newsjacking really, and that's when you kind of wake up in the morning and you see something in the news and you think, oh, that's really interesting, and that could be something that we can talk about. So an example for this maybe could be, we work for a brand that sells curtains, and they like design and make designer curtains. So when we started work one day, we saw that Dulux had released the colour of the year, for 2020, and we knew, okay, we've probably got curtains in our thousands of products that actually match this colour. So we went on and we found all those products. We created a nice blog piece telling people, okay, this is the key trend for this year, here's how to find them. And then we put that out on social, and that achieved coverage in some of the big magazines as well as doing really well. And that was just a really good example of how to keep the channels alive. So it is that nice balance between having enough of a plan to make sure you never miss anything and that content is going out and that it doesn't feel like a chore all the time, but that it gives you enough freedom and flexibility to then really jump on things when they're likely to come up as well. And then at the end of each month, we always recommend that you create a full evaluation of your results, which should include things like which posts performed well, which ones didn't, any areas for improvement. Being really transparent and honest and understanding these results are really, really key. It'll help you take away learnings for the following month. So for example, you might find that posts speaking to a specific audience didn't do very well at all, but other ones really did. And you may find that all your videos get loads and loads of reach and loads of engagement, but that your still photos don't, so that you can then start to think, okay, right, let's maybe do less posts, but make sure that they're all video, and use our resource in that way. It's just a case of taking what the results give you and really making something out of them. Here's a bit of an example of a content calendar. This one's colour coded. It really depends on how you like to work. We keep things colour coded so that we know that we're working to that 70-20-10 balance that we talked about earlier. Just so that you can see across the whole month what's a brand post, what's an informational post, and what's a direct sales post. And yeah, we recommend that as a really strong strategy. And then we've got all of our channels down the side, as well as any holidays and days that are coming up that we can jump on from a reactive perspective as well. In terms of some of the tools that you can use, Hootsuite is a free social profile management platform, which lets you schedule in tweets, posts and everything across profiles. It allows you to create streams of keywords and hashtags and track all of messages that come through as well. There's also Follower Wonk specifically for Twitter, which will keep an eye on your audiences and those of your competitors, and it will show you really useful insights like exactly when to post and who your followers actually are. So you get a bit of information that you wouldn't have normally that might help you create some of your content, because you might understand that they're primarily female, primarily male, all of a certain age group, or that they have really key interests in certain things like popular culture that you can then start to build in and make relevant posts around. There's also Camber, which is really great from a graphic design perspective, even if you don't have graphic design experience. So this is something that's used, it's completely online, you don't need to download the software or anything, and you can create social media graphics, presentations, posters, and almost any other visual content that you want. They've got Instagram story templates, they've got like graphics, video templates, and you can pay a little bit for Camber, but there is a free version as well, so it's completely up to you which version that you want to do. We recommend choosing brand colours that match your logo and website and sticking to those for consistency. We always say that when people see your post, they should think, yep, that's you, and that's something to really aim towards. And in Canva you can do that. You can set specific colours that you can use in everything, and you can do that for all of your grid posts and everything, and they've all got preset sizes on there as well. We've just popped a little reminder in there to always keep a balance of still image content, video content and moving graphics to keep your feeds fresh and entertaining. So then moving on to community management. What is community management? Well, social isn't a one-way platform, and we've talked about that already. The whole point of it, if it's working successfully, is to have two-way conversation with your fans and your followers, to build this community which consists of current customers, target audiences and people that interact with your brand online. So you need to make sure that you can respond to their positive or, inevitably sometimes negative comments with confidence. So if you get a positive comment, I mean, this is always fun. If someone's given nice feedback, make sure you like it and you comment back. That way their comment will appear higher in the list of comments on the post, and then more people actually get to see that comment as well because you've responded. It's always good to thank people for their feedback, and make sure that you give a little bit of your personality when you do. So if they've been really positive with you, you can think about making jokes to them, giving recommendations of other products that they might want to try, and also encourage them to share their own products with your friends and family too. But what about the negative? It can be really, really scary and really awful if someone comments on your post in a negative way. The first thing to remember really is to remain calm. There's a bit of an assessment whether a response, needs to be seen as a risk, or whether it's just kind of somebody being a bit of a troll, for example. It might be the case that they've simply misunderstood something. So if that's the case, make sure to clear that up with your response. And it may be the case that they just like to comment negatively on the internet, and as such, you'll probably see them commenting on other negative things on other brands and things like that. So it's just a case of weighing everything up, but make sure that all responses that you give are handled in your brand personality. Make sure that you have your kind of morals front and center, and that you're just open and honest. It's definitely not the case that you never apologize if you're in the wrong. So say someone's order hasn't arrived, it's definitely not the wrong thing to do, to say, we're sorry about that, let me look into it. It's a bit of a myth that if you apologise that you've kind of accepted blame and that it's seen really negatively, and it's not the case. Some of the time the world's best brands turn situations back around from being really negative just by apologising and admitting that something somewhere's gone wrong, but that they're going to fix it. So there's a bit of a flowchart on here that'll help. So the first thing that you do is look at assessing the message. Is it a direct problem? If it is, then is there something that we can do about it? Is it constructive criticism? Yeah, then we can probably do something about that as well. Is it a merited attack? So something that they're really unhappy about, but they probably have a bit of a point. Or are they just a dedicated complainer? So they just spend all the time on the internet looking for people to complain at. Or are they a spammer, which is even worse? Someone that will either comment on either just your post or everyone's posts with things that are either relevant or irrelevant, and they can be dealt with in a specific way as well. So what we do, we kind of pop them into these brackets and we understand, is it a genuine problem or is there a misunderstanding? Do we need to go back and inform them of something that they might have misunderstood? Or are they totally correct in everything and are we fixing the problem? In which case, yes, we can absolutely tell them. If they're a spammer, sometimes the worst thing you can do is respond to them because they're getting what they want. So it can be just the case to monitor or kind of remove using Facebook's delete or hide features as that is appropriate, and you kind of learn to do this as these comments come through really. But it's always the case where we either just take a look at the complaint and let them know that that's what we're doing. We either explain what we're doing to resolve the issue, or we actually go and resolve the issue, or we kind of gently correct the facts in a really polite way and provide them with further information. So there's always something that can be done about anything that comes in, and you just have to remain calm and stick with this flowchart, and it's really the best way to go about it. In terms of some of the best practice things, we've got some really simple do's and don'ts. I think I've said this a million times already, but make sure that we're responding and liking relevant posts. Make sure that we're always being friendly and helpful, and that we're taking comments and feedback on board, and make sure that we're letting people know that we are taking it seriously when we do respond to them as well. Make sure we're sharing all those positive feedback pieces that we're getting through, and make sure we're regularly promoting the benefits and the offering of the business, engaging in popular culture where it's relevant, and creating interruptions, which is again what I was talking about earlier in terms of the reactive social media. So the Dulux and the Curtain brand, what we call that interruptions, because it's standing out from the crowd with something a bit reactive and taking the news and really making a story out of it that we can use to interrupt people's feeds and get a bit of attention on the back of a story. Do not use obscure slang. We need everybody to understand the post that we've put out. Do not post publicly without correct approvals. So this is more kind of if you're working within a business but you need something to be signed off. Do not post about topics that you've agreed to avoid already. Good examples of this could maybe be politics or religion. Sometimes it's really not the space for a brand to weigh in on things like that. We don't want to appear dismissive of customers that have genuine complaints. We definitely don't want to be boring or dull, and we definitely don't want to be overtly salesy, because people will just switch off from that message. Finally, this is kind of tied up with things to avoid. Dull and mundane topics such as the weather. They don't teach us anything. They're not very interesting. Let's avoid them. Again, let's not be overtly salesy. Let's not promote other brands or competitors by accident or otherwise. Let's not talk about world events and tragedies unless there's an official statement or a message of sympathy or an understanding. We don't want to post about other brands' misfortunes in a positive way. It might be really good news to you that a competitor has kind of closed down or decided to change their product line, but it's not something that is received very well on social to tweet or post about. We don't often tweet about being politically biased. We don't like swearing, and we don't like sexism or any other type of discrimination. So what I would say is a bit of a golden rule is just when you are going to post something, check your gut feeling. If you feel a bit weird about it and something in there is telling you it's not quite right, there's something not there, then often listen to that and just have a think, see if there's a word in there that could be misconstrued. Ideas when written out sometimes don't have the context or the tone behind them to really say exactly what you want, so just double check before you post anything. Does it pass the gut test? And if it does, you're good to go. Then on to reporting. What does good look like? It's so important to make sure you're checking in on your social results. You can use Facebook and Instagram's insights, Twitter's analytics, or another tool like Sprout Social or Hootsuite if you've signed up to those. And what they'll do is they'll have a look for you and pull together quite easy reports. You need to be looking for consistent increases in things like your follower growth. Engagements is really, really key. So how many people are liking, commenting, how many people are sharing your content, how many people has this content reached, and then what are your web traffic figures looking like in Google Analytics, and how are your sales growing as well, and how is social media tied into that. So I would recommend creating a bit of a dashboard every single month, whether it's a presentation that you make for yourself, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet so you can keep all your data in there, but just make sure that you're always on top of these figures and that you're always looking for consistent increases and thinking about how last month's activity can really showcase how to move forward with next month's activity. And the final tip from me, enjoy being creative. Social media is a really great tool. It lets you communicate with the world about your business and your products. Enjoy the process. It can be something that's seen as quite stressful, be seen as something that is quite competitive, and it's definitely not the case. It's a space to be creative and really shout about things that you're proud of, and communicate that with people that you would never have reached without these platforms. So just make sure that you enjoy the whole process and that you really make the most of everything that you're doing. And that's it from me. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I really hope that this has been useful for you and that you can go away and have some really great social media results. Look forward to seeing you go viral. Thank you.